sorry, I didn't see you there. No, but seriously, this is a video that I've kind of wanted to do for a while, and I was gonna do it like a year or two ago, and then I kind of messed up with it and lost all the files that I used for it, and I didn't want to do it again. But now that I've had some time to grow and watch even more movies, I figured it'd be kind of a cool time to do this list. Okay, this is my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Now, well, not favorite movies, but at least the 10 of my all-time favorite movies. And I will be giving a few runner-ups, and these runner-ups are just basically films I can think of off the top of my head that I really, really like. Because it's hard for me to think of, other than like these top 10, it's hard for me to think of any other films I would consider to be some of my favorites. But basically, this isn't in any particular order, so obviously I'm not putting, like, something like Evil Dead over something like, I'm not putting Evil Dead, like, higher on the list than I would put, like, I don't know, like, Sin City, or Django Unchained. Like, I wouldn't do that. But I'm just saying, like, this is in no particular order. I just basically wrote a list of this, like, instantly, just thinking off the top of my head what are some of my all-time favorite movies. And made a really, really quick list with a few quick runner-ups based on some other stuff that I had said before and watched before, so. Anyway, let's get this whole thing started. Alright, first we have a film by David Fincher. Now this might be very cliched to say, especially as like a favorite film, one of a personal favorite films. It might be a bit cliched to say this, but Fight Club is probably one of the best films I've ever seen. And again, this is another cliche to say, but I never really thought a film could do something like what happens in Fight Club. It really messes with your expectations, and it's just so amazing. And if there was a film that I would think is a perfect film, Fight Club is definitely a perfect film. It's well made, it's entertaining, it's well acted. I mean, it is all around a really, really awesome movie. And it's also, like, an absolute just mindfuck, as well as it being, like, I don't know how to explain it, honestly. Other than by saying it's a film that really opened my eyes and changed the way I saw movies. Because I saw Fight Club when I was in, like, the 4th grade, and I was absolutely blown away by the film. And now I just sit here and I still, go back to the movie and watch it every once in a while and just kind of smile and notice, like, little subtle things in the film. And that's when you know you've made a perfect film, is when someone can rewatch the film over and over and over and still enjoy it and still find something interesting in the film. I'll be honest with you, when I first saw Old Boy 3 years ago, I just randomly fucking watched. Next, we have Chan-wook Park's Old Boy. Or I should just go ahead and say the entire Vengeance trilogy as a whole. But I honestly think this is another one of those films that really kind of changes your perception of films and filmmaking in general. After I saw Fight Club and I started to get into movies again and, like, started to get really deep into movies, I never thought I'd see another film that would make me think the same thing that Fight Club made me think, and that is, I never thought, I'd ever see another film that would change my perspective on what filmmaking can do, other than just tell a story. And Old Boy is, I mean, it's a raw, emotional, bleak, depressing, violent, and all around just badass revenge film. Like, you can watch this movie and be like, oh yeah, this is a badass revenge film. But it's also a really kind of deep psychological drama, and there aren't a lot of films that can make me cry other than Come and See and Johnny Got His Gun and Marley and Me, and okay, there are a few films that can make me cry, but this film is one of those ones, it's one of those very special ones where the first time I watched it, I'll be honest, I wasn't impressed. I thought it was kind of a bad movie, and I just kind of just threw it all aside. And then I rewatched it, and I saw the absolute brilliance in the film. It's one of those films that it didn't make me cry the first time around, but it got to me the second, which is an interesting thing that only happens to me a few times. That's only happened to me maybe 2 or 3 times in my entire life, and that's a very special thing to me, honestly, when a film can, like, make me feel one way and then I go back to it and I feel completely different when I'm watching it. Alright, you should have saw this one coming, but on this, another one of my all-time favorite movies, and I'm just gonna do like I did with the previous one where I just mentioned the entire Vengeance trilogy. I'm just gonna mention an entire series of films. I'm going to talk about the Evil Dead trilogy. The Evil Dead trilogy is a very important franchise to me. I remember I saw the first Evil Dead movie when I was in the 7th grade. So this was... yeah, this was a while ago. This was years and years ago. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, honestly. I watched the movie for the first time, and it was one of the first movies in a long time to legitimately frighten me and make me sick to my stomach. And even now, even though I can watch the movie and enjoy it and love every second of it, it still makes my stomach churn. It still creeps me out. It's proof. This film is proof that you don't need a big budget to make a good movie or to make a horror film. And this is proof that you don't need a big budget to make a good horror film. This is proof that you don't need a good big budget to make a horror film that's actually frightening. And there's just something about the series too, because the series is one of those perfect kinds of horror series where all the sequels have the same actors and same characters basically, and yet you can watch them in any order you want and you won't be confused. I mean, I saw the series when I first came across Evil Dead as a series. I came across Army of Darkness first, and I saw Army of Darkness, and I absolutely adored Army of Darkness. It was a very fun, quirky, awesome, like, you know, horror comedy. And then I came across Evil Dead, not knowing that the two were connected at all. And then Evil Dead scared the living shit out of me, and I was absolutely terrified to see Evil Dead 2, and I held off on that for years and years, and then I finally got around to watching it, and I completely regret not watching it sooner, because it is one of the best horror comedies just ever made, period. It blends horror and comedy so well. There are very few films that can make me, you know, cringe and kind of gag a little bit one moment and then make me laugh my ass off the next. And there have only been a couple movies to do that to me. One of them being Ichi the Killer. But Evil Dead has had such a big impact on my life that it's the inspiration for the movie I'm trying to fund, Zombie Fruit Eaters. It's one of the reasons I want to be a filmmaker. I want to make the next Evil Dead. I want to be that director who creates something this phenomenal with so little, and create something so big. I'm gonna knock out the 2 Kubrick films I have on my list at once. So the 2 Kubrick films, the next 2 movies, are The Shining and A Clockwork Orange. I'm gonna start with A Clockwork Orange. A Clockwork Orange is probably one of the best films I've ever seen. It is easily like one of the most disturbing movies ever made. The novel that it is based on is absolutely just amazing, and it is another one of those films that really changed the way I look at movies and the way I look at the world. I honestly don't know why I love the movie so much. It's just such an entertaining, interesting, like, crazy movie. And it's so, like, it's so dark, and yet at the same time humorous. It's a film that, like, defies, I mean, it's hard for me to talk about. That's how much I love this movie. I can't really say why. I think it might have to do with the fact that the performances in the film are great. The cinematography is perfect, as is Kubrick's, thing. The movie is absolutely perfect. I can't think of a single thing wrong with the movie that I honestly think falters the movie in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the character of Alex, even though he's an absolute piece of shit, he is so likable, such a lovable and cool character, and he just seems like a really cool guy, really nice guy. But then you realize this guy's also a murderous thief rapist, and it's just horrible. But you kind of love him at the same time. It's really, really weird. Next we have The Shining, the best Stephen King adaptation ever. And this is one of the many adaptations of books that I've read that I think where the film adaptations are better. So, and the other one, yes, is A Clockwork Orange. Okay. Why is The Shining probably the greatest horror film ever made? I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that, it's actually fucking terrifying. It's well shot. The aspect of the film, whether or not it's a supernatural film or a psychological film, just mixes so well to the point that you kind of have to make your own decisions about what's really going on in the hotel. It's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure book, except choose-your-own-adventure books didn't scare the shit out of you and make you look at rotting old naked ladies. There's just something about the way Kubrick makes movies that I can't see flaws in them, because he made every single frame perfect. I've yet to see a film from Stanley Kubrick that I did not enjoy. Even 2001: A Space Odyssey I loved. I will admit that's not my favorite film from him. It's not in my all-time favorite films, but it is definitely a great, great film, and it is definitely his best film from a cinematography standpoint. I mean, hell, I even enjoyed Eyes Wide Shut. I gave Eyes Wide Shut a 10 out of 10, even though Nicole Kidman's performance in it was absolutely fucking cringeworthy. There is something about Kubrick that makes me just love him, and it's very, very sad that Kubrick has passed away. I mean, we'll never have a man like Kubrick ever again. I honestly don't think we'll ever have another Kubrick. And really, movies haven't been as masterful and beautiful since. There have only been, a few shining examples. Those, of course, being stuff like Fight Club, Old Boy. But really, it seems like films haven't been really that good at all since his death. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. This is going to be another one of those videos where I'm just talking to a fucking to a reflection of myself and the fucking camera thing to make sure I'm in frame. Taxi Driver is one of the other films that I think is absolutely perfect. It is my favorite Martin Scorsese film, and it does a great job of portraying the gritty life and like the grimy, gritty life of living in the inner city, dealing with crime, dealing with the pimps, the hookers, the all the scum of the earth. It's there's just something about the film that really speaks to me. This is one of those lists that I honestly, this is one of those lists where I really can't think of anything to say about these movies other than that they're fantastic and that, you know, if you haven't gone out to see them yet, see them. Especially Taxi Driver. I mean, Taxi Driver is one of, if not the best crime film ever made, and probably one of the and easily Martin Scorsese's best film. I don't think I can do this anymore. You know, when I was making this list originally, I was like, I feel like I'm missing something on this list. I feel like I'm missing something. I realized what I was missing, and it is a film that I have always said is the best Quentin Tarantino film of all time, and it is a film that deserves more credit than it gets, and it gets as much credit as fucking possible. It should have won Best Picture over fucking Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump fucking won over Pulp Fiction. I need to bitch about this for a second. Pulp Fiction is another film that I think is perfect. There is not a single moment in this film that is dull. It is dialogue driven. It is very entertaining. The characters are well written. The characters are likable. Even the characters that are absolute fucking scumbags have some kind of charm or likability to them. And there's just so much going on in the film, and it is another one of those films that really changed the way I look at things, the way I look at filmmaking, really. It was one of the first movies I'd ever seen that has a non-linear storyline, and it really messed with my head. Even though it's not really that much of a mindfuck of a film. I mean, there have been non-linear films made before Pulp Fiction, and there have been non-linear films made since probably the beginning of filmmaking. But it was the first one I ever saw, and much like how when I saw Fight Club, it really changed things for me. And I realized that there's a guy out there who is making these films independently and making them absolutely perfect to the T, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, doing all of this shit, and while still, like, making the movie serious and sometimes even depressing, and still violent and entertaining and fun. There is just nothing wrong with Pulp Fiction as a film. And I can't, and again, this is, and Tarantino is another one of those directors that I honestly can't find a film that I would say is bad. I mean, I didn't like Jackie Brown that much, and I do think Reservoir Dogs is a little overrated, but I do think it's a pretty good film. But they're both very well-made movies, so I still have yet to see a film from him that is bad from any standpoint. And this is his fucking magnum opus. This is the perfect film. If there is one film that I honestly think I could watch over and over and over again, it is a tie between fucking Pulp Fiction and The Shining, because there are two films that you can watch over and over and over again, and you keep noticing things and noticing things and noticing things. It is I keep just losing myself. I mean, it is like 1 in the morning and I'm recording this thing about my favorite movies, but usually when I talk about my favorite movies to people, I'm usually more into this, but I don't know, I just can't seem to get too into it. I can't get into detail. Why? Because these movies are just, I just love these movies so much, I don't feel like I have to explain why. Next on the list we have a Japanese horror film by the name of Audition, directed by Takashi Miike. easily Takashi Miike's best film, and probably one of the most overlooked films when it comes to at least the mainstream, at least mainstream cinema. I mean, I wouldn't say this film's underrated at all. I would definitely say it's overlooked in a mainstream American sense because this film does not get as much attention in outside of its own country that it deserves. Audition is one of the very few films, along with stuff like The Babadook, that as an adult, it actually frightens me. It actually makes me tense. It actually creeps me out. It makes my skin crawl. I feel uncomfortable. There are very few films that can do that to me anymore. I've so desensitized to so much shit, and yet this is one of the films that really gets to me. I mean, it's not an overly depressing film. It's not overly gory either. There's just something about how at that like hour mark in the film, it just makes a sudden transition that is, even as someone who knew going in the first time that it was going to happen, it still messed with me. I was like, what? Even though I knew that this was going to happen. It's kind of like when I accidentally spoiled, it's like when I spoiled Memento for myself. And I still ended up watching Memento. Memento still really fucked with me. Like, fucked with my head. And it's just... And I mean, I will admit, there are some plot holes in Memento, but again, this is another one of those films that I can't think of anything negative to say about it because it's just so perfect and how like the story is portrayed and how it's told and the sudden turns it takes. It is just a very, very beautiful film. Alright, next we have the best zombie film ever made. George Romero's Dawn of the Dead from 1978. Again, this is another one of those films I can't think of anything to say about because so much has been said already, so I'll just go ahead and say it. It is the essential zombie film. If there is one film that I think is more essential that a horror fan see than... if there's one zombie film I think a zombie fan should see more than, like, Night of the Living Dead, it is Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is just so good. The character, it just gets everything right. It has great atmosphere, it's got great gore and effects, it's got like the cool kind of comic book style, which really, really adds to the film's overall, I don't know, look and feel, really. It's a film that I neglected seeing for years and years, and it's a film that I regret not seeing for years and years. But I'm kind of glad I waited until I was a bit older to see it, because honestly, if I would have watched this movie when I was younger, I probably would have hated it. I mean, I've changed a lot as a person over the years, and if someone were to tell me that there's a film out there better than, you know, Night of the Living Dead when it comes to zombie films, I would have told them they're crazy. But no, there is. It's called Dawn of the Dead, the sequel to Night of the Living Dead. Alright, and before I get to the last movie on my list of at least 10 of my all-time favorite movies, I'd like to mention a few films that, when I think, you know, some movies that I really, really like, or some films that I would consider some of my favorites, that automatically come to mind. Now, these, again, aren't my all-time favorite movies, and I'm not saying these are the best movies ever made. These are just films that I personally really, really like. Little Otik, the Chechenian film that I used to talk about all the time, then I just kind of forgot about it. It's a really surreal, weird movie, and it's perfect. It is, like, if you're looking to get into kind of weird, surreal cinema, this is probably a very good starting point, because it's not super weird to the point that it's like Eraserhead levels of weird, but it's got very Eraserhead-like moments. My Bloody Valentine, the original from 1981. As I've said before, it is like my all-time favorite slasher film, and I would definitely rank it up there with my all-time favorite horror films as well. Alice, Sweet Alice, another one that I ranked with some of my favorite slasher films. Memento from fucking Christopher Nolan. A film that is often praised for how awesome it is, and I can see why, but there are quite a few plot holes to the movie. And after I watched it the first time, it really blew me away, but watching it a few times since, it's just not... It just doesn't hold up after you watch it more than once. The Devil's Backbone from Guillermo del Toro. It's like his film that he made as kind of like a pseudo prequel to Pan's Labyrinth, and next on the list is indeed Pan's Labyrinth. These are two like fantasy horror films that really have nice atmosphere and just they're really imaginative and entertaining and interesting, and very bleak too. The Skin I Live In, not one of my all-time favorite revenge films, but it's definitely really up there when I think of revenge films that are pretty good. And I mean, it is, oh my god, levels of just like, wow. It is another film that really messes with your expectations. And finally, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I have a tattoo of on. I have a Rocky Horror Picture Show tattoo on my leg, but I'm wearing a walking boot because I got out of my cast, so I am kind of... I can't really show you, but yeah, I got it tattooed on me because I love the movie so much. Alright, and the last movie on the list is a movie that I've only watched once, and it is a film that I've finally got around to watching this summer, and it is Leon the Professional. It is a film about an assassin who takes in an orphan after her entire family is killed, and he basically trains her to be an assassin slowly over time, and they kind of have to move around New York and stuff, and it's really interesting movie. And honestly, I was interested in seeing it for a while, so I decided to watch it on Netflix, and the Netflix has the theatrical version, and it's another one of those movies that just leaves me speechless. It's just such a well-made movie, and it doesn't, like, for such like a simple plot, it's very complex, and at times even humorous. There are just so many times that I think of this movie, and I can't even talk anymore. It's getting bad. But when I watched this movie, I was like, that was really awesome. Like, that was a fucking amazing movie. And I immediately said, when I, posted about it on Facebook, I was like, this might make the list of some of my all-time favorite movies. And it indeed does. I mean, I don't think I have much else to say. I haven't seen the extended version of the film yet, and I'm going to get it soon. I'm going to buy, like, the Blu-ray that has the theatrical and extended version of it, and I'm going to, watch them, because obviously I like the movie. I really like the movie. But, that's it for now. I've just felt like doing this kind of video because I really didn't want to watch something and write a review and, read the review in front of the camera, just because I felt like I needed to put something out because I haven't put anything out for a few days. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys have a good weekend. Officially, it is like... Oh, it's only 12:30 actually, but it's officially Saturday, so... have a good weekend, and I'm gonna go probably edit this video and go to bed. Peace.